Governor Mary Fallin is again making tax cuts a top priority. Despite the rejection of last year's ambitious plan to reshape the tax code, the governor this week asked lawmakers to roll back the state's top income tax rate. She's also urging legislators to begin making long overdue repairs to the state's crumbling capital and to take steps to improve Oklahomans' health, even as she continues to oppose provisions of the federal health care law.
Our job is to keep the pedal to the metal, to accelerate our state's growth, and to continue to build a stronger and better Oklahoma.
Governor Fallin is focusing on the economy as the 2013 legislative session gets down to business, citing Oklahoma's low unemployment rate and the recent growth in new jobs. The governor is urging lawmakers to reduce the state's top income tax rate from 5.25% to 5%.
This is not the last tax cut you will see from my administration. I am serious about lowering taxes, and I will work to get our taxes even lower and to help us be more competitive as a state so that our neighbors to the north and to the south who have lower taxes than us won't be taking jobs from the state of Oklahoma.
The governor's office estimates the tax cut would cost the state $40.7 million in lost revenue in the 2014 fiscal year and an additional $105.8 million the following year. Fallin maintains cutting taxes will lead to economic growth that will offset the lost revenue. Reaction to the proposal generally fell along party lines. Republican Rick Brinkley is the vice chairman of the Senate Finance Committee.
We have long believed that lowering the tax burden on Oklahoma families would grow our economy. By reducing the state income tax, we are sending the unmistakable signal that Oklahoma is open for business.
Senate Minority Leader Sean Burridge says the governor's budget proposal doesn't explain how the tax cut will be paid for.
I also didn't hear how much that's going to cost the state of Oklahoma. In other words, how much less money is going to go into roads and bridges and education because of that tax cut.
House Minority Leader Scott Inman also took issue with claims that a tax cut would keep Oklahoma competitive with neighboring states.
I met with Governor Fallin last week and told her face to face. I said, if we would have followed your lead a year ago when you told us we had to foolhardily chase after Governor Brownback's plan in Kansas so that we could quote unquote be competitive with him, we would be seeing serious budget holes this year.
Senate President Pro Tem Brian Bingman says his caucus supports reducing the state's top tax rate, although the size of the cut is up for debate.
You talk about tax credits and which ones are good and which ones need some modifications. I think we'll pick up that discussion, and how far we go on the tax credits really determines how far you can go on a tax cut.
Preston Dorflinger is the governor's finance secretary. Dorflinger says the governor is ready to negotiate.
If the chambers upstairs are able to come agreement on incentives and other things that might help contribute to paying for this tax cut proposal, or if they want to take it deeper, we're happy to have that conversation with them.
Another issue high on the governor's agenda is repairs to the state capitol.
It's not right for our visitors to come to the Capitol and see construction cones and barriers outside, to have crumbling facades from the top, and a faulty sewer system that stinks.
Fallin is calling for a $10 million supplemental appropriation to begin making repairs to the building's exterior. Democrats maintain that figure is far short of what the Capitol needs.
She knows. Her own words just a year ago stated that we need between $160 to $180 million to repair the Capitol and the surrounding area. But she's only offering a token of $10 million to fix it.
I've heard estimates up to $200 million to fix this building. We have an opportunity to do a bond issue. Interest rates are low, but we don't need to be doing a bond issue and cutting our revenue. That's not how Oklahoma families run their businesses and their checkbook, not how we should be doing it either. But I do think it's a missed opportunity if we don't take advantage and do a bond issue this year to fix this building.
New House Speaker T.W. Shannon says a bond issue to fix the Capitol is unlikely, with House Republicans favoring a pay-as-you-go approach. Capitol architect Wayne Mass says in the long run, that will cost the state more.
Because in construction there is an inflation that we almost count on every year, 2 to 4%. Things just rise in construction, they do. Labor rates go up, materials go up. So many things are tied to the costs of copper and steel. So it will be a more expensive proposition to do.
While the governor's proposal would be enough to repair the outside of the building, Mass says fixing the Capitol's outdated plumbing cannot be put off much longer.
There are times we've had to jack up large sections of the basement floor to get at plumbing, and we found out it's completely deteriorated. Well, what's going to happen is there'll be a point where we can't patch that plumbing back together. You won't be able to flush the toilet. The building will become uninhabitable. If I had to guess, this is not scientific, I'd say within the next decade, you could potentially be looking at the plumbing system just giving up the ghost.
Fallin is also seeking a major boost in spending for child welfare programs.
Responsible government is a compassionate government that offers adequate protection for its children. Oklahoma has a moral obligation to care for our children who have been abused and neglected and now find themselves in state custody.
The governor's budget includes an additional $50 million for the Department of Human Services for improvements to the child welfare system. The governor is also calling for an additional $40 million in Medicaid funding to pay for an expected increase in the number of Oklahomans currently eligible for Medicaid. But Fallin is standing by her refusal to expand the state's Medicaid program, calling it unaffordable.
According to a report from the Kaiser Commission on Medicaid and the Uninsured, the proposed expansion on Medicaid would result in an additional $689 million increase in Medicaid costs between the year 2013 and the year 2022.
Democrats maintain the governor's math doesn't add up.
We believe the governor's numbers of costing the state $600 to $700 million are overstated. That with the thousands of jobs that would be created, with the amount of revenue that would be generated from those jobs, that it would far outweigh the cost to the state.
The governor is also getting some pushback from at least one member of her own party. Republican State Representative Doug Cox is an emergency room physician. Speaking to a rally at the state capitol urging the governor to reconsider her decision, Cox insisted Medicaid is not an entitlement program as the governor claims.
People that it will help are those Oklahomans that work for minimum wage or a little bit above minimum wage, and they work for small companies that cannot afford to provide health care insurance for their employees. So it's really not an entitlement program, and it's an insurance program.
The Oklahoma Health Care Authority estimates about 17% of the state's population does not have health insurance. The governor's budget also calls for a $1 million increase in funding for state prisons, far short of what corrections officials had requested. Dorflinger defended the decision not to seek supplemental funding for corrections, saying they have to know what the agency's needs are first.
Until we're confident of exactly what that means, and I don't want to hear doom and gloom. I don't want to hear it's the end of the world in an attempt to sell fear or doubt. We're going to have a very frank conversation and see what the true needs are.
State prisons are currently at 99% of capacity, and corrections officials have asked for an additional $66.7 million to deal with overcrowding.